For a lot of people, the only way to make power is naturally aspirated. If you're a fan of NA builds, especially mod motor NA builds, you're gonna love this 1996 Mustang GT. This 1996 Mustang GT belongs to Leah, and we've known each other 20 years probably now. This car actually started off as, I believe, a GTS, right?
Correct.
Now, when did you purchase the car first?
So my first day back from Korea, 1997, March timeframe, it was a leftover dealer demo.
Okay. And did you know what the 248A was at the time, or did you just see a black Mustang GT and that's what you wanted?
It had to be black. That was the only thing, and I couldn't quite reach the Cobra at that time.
Okay.
So, you know, I was still pretty young and economically.
Now, when you first got the car, now we met drag racing, I think the modular shootout back in the day. Did you plan on building it as a drag car? Because obviously that's not what it turned into.
Yeah, I initially started out drag racing the car. I mildly autocrossed a little, but all the parts that I bought were pretty focused on drag racing.
And how quick did it go back in the day? Because I remember for a 2-valve back in the early 2000s, this was one of the fastest ones around.
So the 2-valve motor took it to a 12 teen at 100 teens mile per hour.
Okay.
Naturally aspirated.
So after the two, so what ended the 2-valve's life and where did it go? And I mean, I think this thing's had 4 or 5 motors probably since then.
So that particular 2-valve was a Mark 8 short block with ported 2-valve PI heads, and it picked up a knock. So I decided to take the plunge into a big bore stroker 4-valve.
Okay.
And that took a bunch of time, and that was years before Coyote was even a breath on anybody's lips.
Okay. Mid-2000s probably?
Yeah, mid-2000s. So the Coyote started popping up, but this motor was already just about complete.
Okay.
In 2009, it was in the car.
Okay.
And from there, it's transformed to a track day car, not so much. It still drag races now and again, but it's mostly focused on track day.
Now, the engine that's in the car now, how long has that engine been in there? Since 2009?
So the engine is originally built by AHM Performance in Baltimore, and it was recently refreshed by Keith Rhea at Wonder Racing in Pittsburgh.
Okay, because I thought you had it out for a while.
Yeah, and really, it was a misdiagnosis on my part. It dropped a fuel pump. It also had a little pulse in the oil pressure gauge we weren't really sure of, so I decided to pull it and have it refreshed.
Okay.
And it showed a little bit of bearing issue, but nothing serious.
Okay.
And then when I put it all back together, then I discovered the fuel pump was out.
Okay.
As well.
What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna step aside like we do in these videos, and I'm gonna let you tell them all about the modifications you've done to this car.
Okay, so the car is basically Maximum Motorsports everything, but I pieced it together over time. I didn't buy the kit as is. It has a big bore stroker 4.6, dual overhead cam conversion. It is a 6-speed Magnum transmission, the roll cage, the through the floor frame connectors, big brakes, and all the basics that you would go along with that: exhaust and throttle body and radiator. So it's a Texas block. It has a 3.700 stroke with a 3.710 bore. It comes out to really close to 324 cubes and really close to 12-to-1 compression. It just has flat top pistons in it. It's got billet I-beam rods. The cylinder heads on the car are from a Lincoln Aviator, which are the same casting as the Mach 1 or the 0304 Cobra. It has a pretty mild set of Crowler cams in it, and it has a ported short runner FR500 intake manifold. With the E85, it makes 492 horsepower to the wheels and just over 400 torque at all just below 7,000 RPM. With the bigger cubes, in my opinion, it's how they should have came. It is such a good combination. It pulls off of red lights with vigor. Yeah, the torque is great, but it doesn't overwhelm the tires. You know, it puts it all down in first with the torque arm and panhard bar suspension. It is one of the best Mustangs I've driven, and I've driven a few. Suspension starting in the front is the Maximum Motorsports K-member control arms. It has the coilovers with the Coney adjustable shocks. Going backwards, the torque arm and panhard bar conversion is like a night and day change. The best way to describe it is wet and dry traction. The difference with the torque arm is so amazing in a straight line. And then with the panhard bar, the way the suspension continues to work even loaded up in a corner, it is far superior to the Quadrolink in the stuff that I do. Maybe not so much drag racing, but for sure, if you're tracking the car, autocrossing the car, it is awesome. So the transmission is a T56 Magnum. It has the 266 first with the close ratio second, third, and fourth. I chose that basically to make it more usable and suitable to open track days. It may give up a little bit of the 60 foot, it won't leave hard. It has a tendency to eat up softer clutches, so it has an RXT McLeod in it. But, for a drag radial, it'll pull 160 60 foots. It's been 1090 at 130 in the quarter, and still open tracks with the best cars out there. The car weighs 3240 plus driver, so I come in at about 180 pounds. So when I moved to Maryland, Adam, the owner of Rev Auto, is one of the first guys I met in the car scene down there. And we hit it off, we became really good friends, we were roommates for a period of time, and as the Rev business grew, my involvement with them also grew. He's always supported me, allows me to come to the shop on weekends and work on my car. He's done all the dyno tuning. Believe it or not, the tune in this car is still on a factory ECU, tuned by SCT. Adam's the only person that's plugged a keyboard into it. I bet he's got 175 pulls on the dyno to sort it out properly. He cares. At the end of the day, he cares about the car and about taking care of everything and making it right. And I wouldn't let anybody else touch it other than Adam. So as far as the body goes, it's a real Ford 95 Cobra R hood, the Ford Cobra bumper, and then the Saline T1 spoiler. Everything is pulled out to the max to fit over the tires. The hood's ventilated. The biggest benefit from that was actually reducing front end lift. Yes, the engine runs cooler and it stays cool on course, but really the way the front end acts up over 100 mile an hour, it completely changed after I vented the hood. So it is a 96 Mustang, and like I said, I bought it in 97, the first day home from Korea. When I was 10 in 1986, the neighbor up the street, maybe he was 21, 22 years old, but he still lived at home with his parents, had bought an 86 GT T-top black. And to 10-year-old me, it was the fastest car in the world. And I always wanted a black Mustang from that day forward. I came home from Korea, had the chance to buy it, bought it, and I've just kept it. I've just stuck with it. When it's not been working properly, it gets to sit in the corner and wait until I can afford to repair it or change it or whatever have you to make it the way I've wanted it over the years. If I had to regret anything, it would be not jumping to some of the torque arm panhard bar parts in the beginning, because the 4-link works in a straight line, but in a cornered environment, it's very challenging to overcome its shortcomings. And you buy control arms, they don't work. You buy more control arms, they don't work. Eventually, you're wasting money. It's just going down the drain. This year was a shakedown year for the refreshed motor and a brake upgrade and an oil cooler. I've been open tracking it pretty seriously. I've been participating in a track cross series at Summit Point, which has turned out to be pretty fun. I think next is going to be focused on engine management, because the ECU doesn't really want to let me go over 7,000. It has a 2004 Mach 1 ECU in it. Beyond that, I'm looking at a set of fenders for the front to be able to run 18x11s all the way around and run a 315 tire all the way around. In today's market, it would be really tough to walk away from a Coyote swap. Initially, the price of admission is pretty high to do it with air conditioning and power steering and all the things that I would want. But in the long run, it's probably more economical horsepower per dollar if you have to do other things beyond maintenance.
Like I said, I've known Leo a long time and always been a fan of this car, so it's great to have him come out today and tell us the whole story about it. And if you have a cool car and want to see it in our customer spotlight, let us know in the comments below.